The downside to staying in your mind is that the longer you stay there, the worse you get at reading your body's signals. So now if you are in pain, you don't feel it. And that's how people let their health go so far down before they get a wake-up call or a really big scare.
Now during meditation, having that body awareness, that interoceptive awareness of just, okay, what is my body communicating to me right now? And can I focus on that?
And with projectors especially, the sacral conditioning is so strong where we truly don't believe that our awareness and our presence and our attention are actually worth anything.
And I think that the chakras, the energy system, exists on the vital plane, right above, integrated with the physical. And so I kind of see the centers as organs, just as we have physical organs in the body, there's organs in this energy body that we also have.
This is what nervous system dysregulation is, a disconnect between the body and the mind. It's an inability to self-regulate because you've shut off your willingness to read body sensations.
Welcome to the Esoteric Alkhemy podcast, a space where we explore deeper layers of the human experience. I'm your host, Ben Figueiredo, an alchemist, healer, and guide. Join me and my guests to the fringes of science and magic, the depths of the inner world. We'll explore topics related to spirituality, philosophy, sacred geometry, the occult, and more, with the aim of gaining deeper understanding of the reality of the self.
All right, welcome back to the Esoteric Alkhemy podcast. Today I have Griffin Coombs on. He is a mentor and a performance specialist who helps people recalibrate their nervous system, improve their physical presence, and stay grounded under pressure. His background spans physiology, corrective exercise, performing arts, and educational leadership. He has spent over a decade looking at how humans hold tension, collapse, hesitate, or disconnect, and how to bring them back into coherence quickly and permanently. Today, he works with people who need clarity, precision, and someone who can shed light on what's happening beneath the surface. Griffin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. It's a joy watching the content that you put out. It's been very informative and helpful for me. And I just love seeing when people are putting out good content that is practical and beneficial. Yeah, we could start just maybe for our audience, explain a little bit of your background, what you do, exactly how you work with clients, and maybe a little bit how you got there.
Absolutely. So it's hard to put into a box, as I'm sure you experience, the stuff that I do. It's a combination and a connection of a bunch of things. But if I were to try to streamline it, it would be finding the meeting point between mind, body, nervous system, and the way that we behave or express ourselves. And so I have people come to me who need help with movement, fitness. I started doing mostly fitness. I moved into integrative holistic health coaching. I moved more into the breathing and nervous system regulation side of things. And it just was all disjointed. And as I was trying to figure out, and still am trying to figure out, where success is for me as a solo entrepreneur, as a guide in this space, asking myself where it all truly comes together is right now anyway, because it can always change, is how we behave and how we perform under pressure. That could be a musician on stage, or it could be just a regular human being who needs to have a tough emotional conversation with their spouse or their kid or whatever, and has a really hard time doing that. So that's the Cliff Notes version. Is that clear enough for the first question?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I totally get it. When you have all of these different modalities, and for me, I'm still trying to figure out, what does all this really look like, even in my own work and my own personally, we're just working on myself, I'm dealing with a lot of nervous system dysregulation and realizing how far off my nervous system really is, as far as, just realizing how much I've lived in a fight or flight, and for me it's mainly freeze a lot. But yeah, just coming into okay, I have all these different modalities and ideas and practicing breath work and but I guess for you, you mentioned, it's like, okay, we have all of these different things, which ones are actually helping? But then also, do any of them work against each other? Yeah, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Like, if we're doing one thing over here and then another thing over there, it's feeling disjointed, or I guess even for me, like sometimes I'll tend to like find one practice and enjoy it, and then something else will come along and then I kind of forget about that one. I don't stick with one long enough because I want to try another one. Maybe that's my third line in human
Yeah.
design, of just like experimenting and trying things. So in your own progress, your own work, your own discovery of this stuff, what have you found to be the most beneficial in really getting grounded, really holding that presence in your own body so that you feel regulated and clear?
Amazing question. And yeah, I certainly relate to the kind of picking things up, dropping them. And I don't come to see that as such a bad thing. I don't think that we're ever going to, or very rarely are we going to like study something or experiment with something and then take the entire thing with us and, then build on top of it. I think we're going to take the impactful aspects that really changed us and we're going to hold on to that while making space for impactful aspects of other things. So I don't think that you have to adopt a whole method or a whole approach to get the benefits from it. But I've thought about this a lot in, again, just trying to brand myself and like, okay, so, areas I have expertise in, like performance and public speaking in general. And then there's the human design and then there's the physiology, but the physiology is broken down into fitness and movement. And there's the nervous system and there's breathing. And it's like, how I know it all connects, but it is not marketable to just be like, yeah, it's all connected, although I think that's starting to shift with the background frequency shifting and it's more about who we are. And as projectors, I think that's true as well. But like, it's just where's that common thread? And that the best that I can describe it is awareness. Particularly, there's a term called interoceptive awareness, which just means the awareness of your internal state. You could call it body awareness, whatever makes sense to you. But the idea that you can read the signals that your body is giving you and you can have a depth of nuanced attunement to them, that is the foundation for all of this work. It is the one thing that links, as I still have clients that I work with in the fitness and movement realm who don't do the expression and they're not looking for kind of deep revelations through their human design or whatever, but still we ground them there. And that's the same for somebody going through some emotional processing or life coaching. I don't love that term, but it's the same thing because that is the foundation for all of our physical and mental and emotional outputs. Is first the awareness of the inputs.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great. What did you call it? Interoceptive? Is that?
Yep. Interoceptive awareness.
Awareness. Yeah, that's great. I think I've naturally kind of, I guess, intuitively gone into that because that's where a lot of my focus is now, especially in meditation, where when I first started meditating, it was all about like controlling the thoughts and quieting the mind. And then through human design, I realized why that was so difficult for me because I have a very, very active, fixed mind that's always on. So I was like, okay, instead of fighting with my mind, what if I just turned my mind toward other things and focus on my body? And so then like now during meditation, I think having that body awareness, that interoceptive awareness of just, okay, what is my body communicating to me right now? And can I focus on that, different areas of my body, whether it be tension or pain or, just, a tightness in like my breathing, and just learning to kind of be okay with it and relax into it and yeah, I don't know, just work with that in a way and allow whatever comes up, whatever my body is trying to communicate to me, and then go with that so I can work on those issues that my body is bringing to me. So that's really cool
Yes.
that you're also working with that as well.
Yeah. How do you know what to work on if you aren't paying attention, And so this is why, and this is what nervous system dysregulation is a disconnect between the body and the mind. It's an inability to self-regulate because you've shut off your willingness to read body sensations. And that can come from trauma, legit big T trauma. It can come from small t trauma. It can come from just being overwhelmed by emotion or intense experiences and just starting to dissociate and to not want to feel. And when you don't want to feel, we go into the mind and we intellectualize, we dissociate, we start to live there. But interoception is it's a use it or lose it type of thing. So the downside to staying in your mind is that the longer you stay there, the worse you get at reading your body's signals. So now if you are in pain, you don't feel it. And that's how people like let their health go so far down before they get a wake up call or a really big scare. Not because they're trying to be irresponsible, but because they've actually deadened the signaling from body to brain enough to where they don't even realize they're numb to what's supposed to be quite sensitive to the body's needs. And I'm sure you've met those people who are super perceptive, who are like, my voice feels a slightly different vibration than it normally does today. And they're like so attuned to themselves. That's the level at which of sensitivity we want to be at. But like I've heard you talk about with emotions, we're here to experience it all. So that level of sensitivity can be scary for people because that means you're going to feel the highs, you're going to feel the lows and everything in between. And if we are not courageous enough to do that, then that's where we start to become dysregulated. It's basically avoidance manifested in the body.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And it is scary, especially when you're just starting out. You're like, wait a minute, I got to feel all of this pain, all of this, anger, and just let it into my body and let it process. But honestly, that's I think it is the quickest path to, say pain relief. Just for me is like focusing on the pain itself and just going in. Like if I have a specific area in my body that's in pain, like I'll just meditate and focus on it, like specifically, and just pay attention to it, not to amplify the pain or anything, but just to be like, okay, there you are, pain, I see you. Like what do you need? What does this area of my body need right now in this moment? And then as soon as I do that, it's like the pain level drops and it's like it's not as bad, it's not as scary. And then the more just kind of relaxing into it, it's like it kind of just slowly dissipates. Actually, years ago when I heard for the first time I think it's one of the Buddha's teachings that suffering, how does that actually go? It's like we only suffer because we want what we don't have. Like, you know what I mean? Like we want something else, but we have this, and so we suffer because we're not happy with what is right now. And so I was like, that's an interesting concept. So then I started applying that to like the pain. I was like, okay, well, what if I'm just suffering because of this pain because I want to be pain free and I'm not having it. So I'm like, oh, like I want to be pain free, but I'm not. But what if I could just be okay in pain and sit with it? And then it was like, okay, it's gone. Like, oh, that's interesting. So that was kind of the first thread that kind of like led me on this path, which was really cool.
That's it. Brilliant.
So, okay. I love where this conversation is going. You have so many variety of talents and skills, and you started singing more on your Instagram, which was cool. I love that.
Thanks.
So you have some music background. Do you play any instruments?
Yeah. I'm a guitar player. I can play keyboard. I can make a non-musician believe I'm a piano player.
Nice. Okay, so you got some musical skills. You're acting. You've been in some TV shows. Is that? I know you just
a
filmed
couple.
recently.
Yeah, I was just now I play small roles, like because I'm in Morocco right now, so they cast the big roles in the country that they're producing the film, and then when they come on site to shoot, there are like these tiny other roles that they outsource to local casting directors. So being right place, right time, I got some of those opportunities as well, which has been super fun.
That's really cool. Yeah, and then obviously the physiology. work. You're also certified in human design. And so, yeah, I mean, that's like an impressive variety and range of skills. What led you to pursue so many different things?
Yeah, well, thanks for the recognition. My defined ego is dancing. Yeah. Well, it started with music. So was I was always singing since I was a kid, and I picked up guitar in like middle school, joined all the music groups in high school, started exploring more instruments. It came quite naturally to me, and I ended up going to college for music education, and I was a choir director for like 10 years. Music was the first pursuit. And kind of parallel to that, I was in college, I got into fitness, and I guess it's just projector syndrome where you just nerd out and you want to dive deep and understand on a systematic level the stuff that you're interested in. So I was really into fitness and exercise programming and how the body works in that way. And that took me to an interest in health. And, that led later to the compounding interest in biomechanics and corrective exercise and breathing and how it all relates to the nervous system. That was just kind of an extension of that interest. And then yeah, the acting, it fell into my lap. Like I said, just being here, being a local hire, so they can pay me the little bucks, but I'm a native American English speaker, so it was just worked out for everybody. But that certainly calls on, I don't have any formal acting training, but it calls on my performance experience and my my comfort level doing like performing arts and stuff. So yeah, I think the short answer is I've just kind of followed my trajectory interests. And there's also a lot in my design just about with like desire, motivation, and having the 26 as my conscious sun. It's just I am very much, when I like something or I'm interested in something, I want to transmit it. I'm like ready to bring people along with me. So it's very hard for me to just quietly pursue an interest for myself. I've got to post about it. I got to tell people about it. I'm a fourth line unconsciously. I have this drive to share it with my networks. I'm sure that I'm no more talented than a lot of people, but maybe they're on display a little bit more just because of how I put things out into the world, but who knows?
Sure, yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you about too. Is you're a 2/4 profile. Did you find like a lot of these things just kind of came naturally to you, being that the two is the natural? So did it seem like, okay, this was just easy as you fell into it as it was there?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it anyway. There, like music came very naturally. Like I always had a nice sounding singing voice. I picked up guitar really, really fast. When I started tinkering around with other instruments, like I realized that I had an ear that other people didn't have. Like I could hear, in high school, I started picking out what the notes were and what the chords were without, just knowing what they were and all that stuff. And that carried over. I was really successful in college for that reason too. So I had this like foundation of just very natural musicianship that allowed me to build on. Um, and I would say like not everything came naturally, but the foundations of everything I pursued, I say would come naturally. Naturally, obviously, as projectors, we are natural guides. So I've always been able to teach or to help people along. That came really naturally to me. And just the systematic understanding of stuff that I'm interested in and seeing nuances that I didn't think other people were seeing have always served me. And then, it's not always a picnic. We second lines do have to hone our craft. We do, that's what the hermit is doing. It's there and we're in our flow and we're getting better at it. But yeah, I certainly resonate with the natural, which sounds almost like is this a privileged thing to say? Like, sorry. But yeah, I mean, it's true. That's
Yeah.
just how it goes, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sitting here a little bit jealous because I'm like, man, I've been a 1/3, and yeah, I feel like it's just been a struggle of like, making all the mistakes and like trying to figure it out and like, well, what do I want to do? And that not that I don't love my design, because I do. The more I think about it, and as soon as I found out I was a 1/3, it was like, oh yeah, that's me. Like, I'm the researcher. I just love to get in, learn all the knowledge. and apply it. And yeah, so, but it's cool to hear from other profiles what their experience is, and if it resonates. And like you were saying before, the 2-4 being really, I think Ra always call it, the missionary profile, where it's like, oh yeah, they get called out and they find what they're naturally good at, and then they want to go and tell everybody, right? They want to tell their network, and it's like, you got to do this, man, And so do you think that was a big part of the role that you play in a coach and a guide? Obviously, the projector aura is there, but your profile being consciously, naturally good at something, honing those skills, and then going out and building a network and saying like, hey, here's what I have to offer. Does that kind of resonate?
Yeah, not always. So I had spent a lot of time trying to make this solo coaching practice work in a very not self way. And the 2-4 profile was something that I really had to come to terms with. And I'm still building. I'm small time. Like this is, and even just saying that is an evolution, because even a year ago, if I were on a podcast, I'd try to make it sound like I'm more successful or bigger than I really am. But like it's the magnetism of the second line and comes from the being seen, basically. And it's also where our struggles are, where it's really uncomfortable to actually just put yourself out there for who you are and not polish or refine yourself. And so, as much as I'm grateful to be a natural at a lot of things, the hard work comes from the courage it takes to put it out there in this like intense fear of being seen. And that's why I started posting more singing stuff. I wasn't even posting human design stuff until pretty recently, because I was trying to, I've always had this fourth line unconscious desire to transmit and to be the missionary and to tell my network. But I was doing it in a way of like trying to be my teachers, trying to be my coaches, my mentors, of just like, okay, I'm going to take your information and now my job is to share the information. And I had to get really real with myself about who I am and how I'm not these people, and how nobody has a reason to listen to me unless I'm being myself. And human design itself has been a huge piece in helping me be okay with that and loosen the grip on myself. And more invitations have come, more recognition. And so, yeah, it's a signpost that we've all got our stuff, we've all got our layers we got to peel back. But now just seeing it in that light, yes, I would say that the 2-4 profile in that way does resonate.
Yeah, you made really good points, about human design and trying to put yourself out there. But then I even struggle with that myself, of, like you said, trying to be your teachers or trying to be other people that inspire you and put it out that way. But yeah, coming to realize like, no, I have to be me. I can share similar things and talk about the same things, but I have to do it in my way. Being authentic, teaching from who I am, right?
Yes.
And not trying to emulate. And that's all what human design is about, is the science of differentiation. Who are you? How are you different than everybody else? Even if you have similar design, you're going to do it in a very unique way, because you're the only you that there is, right? I like to talk about like me I am an experience. I am my soul. I am, ultimately source, experiencing the universe itself through this particular experience that we call Ben, and the same for you, Griffin. And then I'm experiencing my experience, can only experience your experience by relationship, by communicating, comparing notes, basically. Like, and that's, I think, what outer authority is. It's like, hey, here's my notes from my experience, do whatever you want with them, compare them and take them, and then you give me your notes from your experience, and we're like, oh, that's a cool experience, but I can never know exactly what it is to be Griffin and live that experience or teach from that experience. Yeah, so I think it's the more we can learn to really accept ourselves, be 100% who we are, the more beautiful the world will start to get, because we'll each just be embodying exactly what we came here to be. You know, the world really needs us to each be authentic and teach from our authentic true selves. So that's a beautiful recognition and realization, you know, when we can get to that place. So what drew you to human design originally? Was that how long have you been in
Yeah, there's I guess there are like 3 touch points on the timeline. So the first was 2018. I was newly living in Morocco. I'd maybe been here for 6 months or something. And at that point, I still just was not sold on anything like beyond the material world. But I was starting to entertain, and I have a really close friend who is an astrologer and just very, very knowledgeable about astrology. We would talk pretty regularly, and she would just narrate her life, like tell me what's going on with her, but always through the lens of astrology. Like I would never get an update that wasn't linked to astrology. So the more I started to learn about the transits, and the more I was like, this is actually clocking. This is checking out. I don't know if she sent it to me or I stumbled across human design, and I saw that I was a projector, and it all looked really crazy to me. And all I remember from that phase was like, well, it's the least cool sounding name of all the types. It's, you know, generator sounds cool. Manifester sounds cool. You know, even reflector, I'm like, projector? That sounds like, I'm thinking in terms of like psychological projection, like I project onto people, like, what a loser. And then I kind of forgot about it, but over the years, I'm still talking to this friend. I'm still becoming more open to the esoteric. And then I think it was 2021 when I revisited human design a little bit more seriously, and I call it like my human design light era, where okay, I understood my type pretty well. I understood my profile. I understood what my inner authority was supposed to be, and I kind of dabbled, you know, when it's convenient, you remember the fact that you're a projector, or, you know, whatever. You call on your profile and you're just like, "Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be this way." And then you forget it, you like put it in the closet. And that was not good because I didn't like the inconvenience of being a projector, and I almost felt like disempowered. And I think one of the ways that I tried to reclaim power was using the projector type as like a way to either blame others, you know, in my bitterness, or to cultivate entitlement, or to be able to say like, well, I'm just smarter than you because I'm a projector, or I'm just, you know, I see things you don't, or whatever. Meanwhile, like not helping myself actually live a better life at all. And then the current era started not that long ago, end of late 2024. um, I was just in a low point business wise. I was, you know, still really trying, and I was operating in a very sacral way, just trying to make this coaching stuff happen. And it just wasn't happening. No success, no clients. And then I was feeling particularly disheartened because just nothing crazy in my personal life, but it was just like there was no escape. Like there was nothing that was good or something that I was looking forward to where I could just kind of escape to and be like, okay, well, at least I have this coming up, or at least, you know, this part. So everything just felt flat. And I was just like, what am I going to do? Human design kept coming up in my periphery on like social media or YouTube and things like that. And I was just like, okay, what if for the next year, I just like actually take human design seriously? Why not use this? Because I don't have a compass right now. I'm just kind of throwing my hands up. Like, at least this feels empowering. Like, I'm going to be myself and do things the way that I'm supposed to do them. So I booked a reading and then just took off from there. And then I started becoming projector interested and was like, okay, I got to learn more, but I also need to embody. And I'm glad that I picked up on that tendency of everybody, but especially us projectors, to stay in the head and to master the system, and to even have really great outer authority and actually not follow our own inner authority, or not do the work of actually embodying our design. Which, by the way, I can't imagine when that's going to be over. I can't imagine waking up and being like, oh, I'm pretty good at living my design. Like it never feels just like, yeah, I've arrived, but it's, it gets better if just sticking with it, I guess. Yeah. So that's been where I've been at, and I've been grateful to have been able to use it now as part of my work to guide others as well. And yeah, I love it. I think it's so useful.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had the same experience with similar experience with finding out I was a projector, and that's so funny that you mentioned the name because I had the same thought. I was like, projector, really? Like that's what it's called? Yeah, that's hilarious. So, what has your experience been as a projector? Maybe if you can explain how you view what it means to be a projector. I feel like there's the stereotypical, what we know about projector is like you kind of see, especially in pop HD, oh, projectors are always so exhausted and they have no energy. Now we're non-energy type. I feel like a lot of that can be taken and used by the victim mentality that projectors are probably prone to. And then, we kind of can wallow in that, like, oh, I can't do anything because this is just how I am. So yeah, I'd love to hear how you view being a projector and what it can look like, because I think it can be very powerful. But yeah, what has your experience been?
Yeah, what a great question. I think projector power is the power of perspective. I think that there is nothing more potent in a projector than being invited, being able to, like, having the stage set for them to share what they see and the way they see it for people who want to listen, who want to know. And that, call that the invitation, recognition, whatever. But like, if you are truly ready to hear a projector's perspective on whatever the thing is that you're recognizing them for, you're called to draw that out of them. That is literally life changing. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm saying that with projectors that I've learned from as well. Like, they are just so perceptive. And I was talking with a projector friend once about how, like, I've tried being guided by other types. And I try not to put constrictive rules on my experience where, like, well, generators aren't meant to guide, so I'm never going to hire a generator. But I'm actually kind of at that point now, not because of dogma, but because of my experience, where it's like, I felt like I could get away with so much with, like, a non-projector guiding me, because it's like I can do all the things on the surface, and it's like I'm a kid in school, like I'm getting good grades, or whatever, but I'm actually not learning anything because I don't care. It's like I'm like an underachiever and just, like, doing well on paper, and I'm being congratulated for it. And it's like, great. And meanwhile, you try to do that with a projector and they're just like, are you actually, is this actually what you want, or are you masking something, your deeper desires, and avoiding them, like that kind of thing? I'm just like, oh shit, nowhere to hide now. Right? But that's the stuff that is so powerful when you're ready for it, and also is so repelling uh, and almost violating when you're not ready for it, which is like, speaks to our aura mechanics and speaks to the importance of the invitation and recognition for both parties. So yeah, I mean, I think I don't experience I rarely nap. I am an energy projector. I have a defined root and a defined ego. And so, like, I definitely have a lot more motion to me than, like, the stereotypical pop HD projector. But I do run into walls where it's like, okay, that's it. That's what I have for today. And, see you tomorrow. In terms of, like, energy levels or potent attention. We know that there's so much variety within the projector type. Yeah, I think that it is really hard to reduce anyone to a type, and it's not helpful. But especially projectors, because there's just so much variety that it's like, yeah, the common ground is just the potency of perspective, whether they're energetic or whether they deliver it with with a punch, or whether they're more of the open receptive type or anything in between. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's so cool to hear. I love that perspective, and realizing too, it's like, yeah, there's 4 types in human design, but again, it is the science of differentiation. So how is everybody uniquely different within that type? And really, I think, like you're saying, it speaks to aura mechanics, more just like how does our body, how does our aura genetically operate, and yeah, how do we work with that? I've had a couple people, like close friends. I have a projector friend, and he's not like super into human design. He more just listens to me talk about it. But he's a projector, and he's a projector where he likes the systems. He's really into the Enneagram, and so I'll tell him about human design and stuff. But one of his things, he's like, yeah, but I just don't want to be told, that I can't do something, you know? And I'm like, yeah, I totally get that. Like we are, especially our minds, we want to have everything available to us. But at the same time, like I'm a human, I'm not a bird, I can't fly, So am I going to spend my life trying to fly, or, will I just accept my limitation? Physically, obviously we have mechanical things that enable us to fly. But as far as me physically in my body being able to fly, I can't do that. So what can I maximize my potential in a human form instead of trying to spend my life trying to fly, right? So that's kind of how I view, like, okay, our designs, like, okay, this is the way I'm designed to operate. And part of that is what I'm here to do and who I'm here to be. So how can I just fully embody that and become the best version I can be of me?
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Yeah, it's like if you don't know any better and you're like, should I pursue flying or should I pursue running? As a human, if you don't know the difference and you choose flying, like you're going to have a much harder life. So it's kind of like, your design is sort of a map to, it's not, I don't ever see it as telling you what you can and can't do. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people in the community refer to it as the experiment, because you've got to try it out. It's not a matter, no one's telling me I can't do anything without recognition or invitation, but every time I don't, it doesn't usually work. And so it's just, I'm iterating my approach to life. Like, okay, well, what if I lean into this gift that I have or this approach that I have and see if that works out better? And with projectors especially, the sacral conditioning is so strong where we truly don't believe, most of us, especially those who are completely unaware of this stuff, truly don't believe that our awareness and our presence and our attention are actually worth anything, that it's enough. And we might like to identify with, yeah, but I'm a hard worker. I like to do stuff. I like to go get them. And that might be true to some degree. It also might be a really loud, not self voice, and you actually don't like it. I was recognized for so long in so many jobs and so many pursuits for not self behaviors, recognized for amplifying sacral energy. And I liked it. I became addicted to the praise and the validation. And only through honestly going through this experiment, like there are these times, sometimes I'll have a session with a client and it's like, I'm just there with them and I am doing the projector thing. I'm seeing something they're not seeing. I'm reflecting something back to them. I am feeling what they're feeling and helping them process that. And then it's over. And it was like this potent experience. And I'm like, this feels great. This feels great, that the power of this experience feels great. The way it happened feels great. And also the fact that it's not wrapped up in this grind like workday also feels great. So it's like following breadcrumbs. And it's like the more I'm like, well, let me see if this human design stuff is really actually works for me. It just does. It's just the more I live like a projector, the more I like it, the more I'm like, I actually always wanted this and just was too afraid to pursue it or didn't think I deserved it or whatever. So yeah, to anybody who's thinking like, I don't want to be told what to do, just easy reframe is that it's just a suggestion for experimentation. And if it works for you, it becomes a really helpful map. And if it doesn't, you can throw it away. Who cares?
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I've had a similar experience as well, as just being recognized for that non-sacral, that are amplifying the sacral energy and being able to uh, get something done and work hard, and even recently. And part of through that experience, though, it was cool because I was able to recognize a certain shadow in one, part of my design. Actually, one of the gates that I have activated in my sacral, in my open sacral, is gate 42. This drive to finish things and complete things. And it's actually in my personality moon, right? Which is this driving force. And so as I was doing it, I was realizing I have this like almost an addiction to finishing things.
Yeah, like an emotional need.
Yeah. And no matter the cost, right? To my own well being, it was like, okay, I'm just going to get this done. Like, even if I'm tired, even if I'm not feeling it, I'm going to. And yeah, it was a good lesson for me, realizing, okay, I don't have to sacrifice myself in order to make sure things get complete. Like, they'll get complete at the right time. And so it was like this back and forth of learning to let go and learning to really embody my design more, and allowing what needed to come through, and not trying to force things to happen, or force myself to uh, into that conditioning of the sacral world of the energy beings, to just consistently go and make things happen and get it done. Because it's like, hey, guess what, it still got done. It was building, I was building a shed, and the guy I built it for, he was extremely happy with it. And he's like, man, you really know how to make things happen and get it done. And I was like, it's like, yeah, it took a while, but I got it done.
Yeah.
Still finished. Yeah, it's I love human design for that reason, just being able to contemplate and then being aware of the different things within your design, so that way when they do come up in your life, it's like they kind of trickle to the surface, and then you're like, okay, where have I been? Where have I been, in a bad habit with this particular thing? And how can I reframe my relationship to it so that it's in a healthy way, right?
Bingo. Well, I remember you mentioning something, I don't think in this interview, but before, about sacral burnout, or the
Yeah.
experience of sacral burnout. And I think that's just something to touch on with, especially with non-sacrals, because I definitely did experience it. And I think that there's always a story in our minds that is usually attached to those not self behaviors. Yes, sometimes we are just rolling unconsciously with things that we don't realize why we're doing them. But if, for example, like trying to grind and trying to keep up with the sacral world, there's some story in our head that's telling us that's what we need to do to be worthy, or to be successful, or to make enough money to survive, or whatever it is. So examining those from the mind perspective is just a really helpful thing. And again, the body graph can kind of tell you which of those thoughts might be playing in the background of your mind, so you're kind of aware, and which behaviors they might be attached to, so you can start to be like, okay, is this, and then again, it's an experiment. Like, is this not self, or is this self? And is this actually serving me or not? But there's also the type of burnout that people don't talk about, is the workplace burnout, which I think is projectors are especially susceptible to. So there's physiological burnout, and then there's workplace burnout. And so physiological burnout is like basically adrenal fatigue, right? Like you're on for so long that then you just crash, and you have a physiological lack of energy that you have to progressively get back in a, hopefully with a professional. But then the workplace burnout it's more mental, it's more emotional, and it has to do with a lack of recognition or lack of appreciation for the work that you're doing, where the work becomes not meaningful to you. And compensation can be part of it, but it's more about, do you feel like your contribution is valuable? Do you feel like anybody would give a shit if you left the job? And that is a real type of burnout that is separate from the physiological burnout, which then of course can manifest physiological symptoms or whatever, but that's more what I experienced. And when I put the pieces together as a projector, I'm just like, yeah, all I wanted was some fucking recognition for all that I was doing, and I didn't feel like I was getting it. So it was like I was grinding away. I was a school administrator. So I was a music teacher. I moved into administration. I was an assistant principal for elementary and middle school uh, at in an international school here in Morocco. And so I mean, everybody's problems are coming at me. There's no breaks. There's no spaciousness. There's none of the stuff that we need to operate energetically at our highest level as projectors. And I'm just like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna work through. I'll take my breaks later, like whatever. I'm a sort of wellness professional, and I knew how to take care of myself. Like I was still prioritizing my sleep. I was still exercising regularly at an intensity that was appropriate for me at the time, eating pretty well. So like I wasn't experiencing the physiological symptoms of burnout, but I was so bitter. I was so fed up with doing all of this stuff that was not me, that was just really mentally exhausting me, and just being the guy, because I was the disciplinarian, right? So I remember like last day of school and kids, all the teachers getting all these gifts and these letters and all this recognition from the kids who saw them every day. And of course, I'm the guy they only see when they're in trouble. And so no one's saying, hey, thanks, Mr. Griffin, for, helping me through this or counseling me through this situation or, for whatever it was. Like no one gave a shit. And that was when I was like, this is just not fun in any way. And I started to consider leaving schools. And then I did.
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about that distinction before. That's a very important distinction to make between the physiological burnout and the workplace burnout. Cause yeah, I totally agree. There's two different things one existing more in the mental emotional plane. For sure. For sure. And especially projectors are, I feel like, at least in my experience, susceptible to that workplace burnout. Yeah. Just like you said.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because recognition is what gives us the energy to do our thing. If there's no recognition, we're running on fumes, we're running on borrowed energy, and that's just going to catch up to us.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That was one of my questions I wanted to ask is if you had ever experienced burnout. So what do you do now? Like, or do you have any daily practices, or obviously not taking the wrong jobs is probably a big one, right? But do you have any daily practices physically or mentally that keep you from that burnout?
Yeah. So, I mean, the good thing about being a solopreneur is that I can kind of design my day to prevent that. So I am really conscious more than ever. I used to be the type of, I'll just fit it in, like, and seeing where the gaps were in my calendar and I can fit one more thing. And now I'm just like, no, I already have two things going on today. Like I'm not going to put another thing in the calendar, and I'm just going to basically intentionally include spaciousness. So that's number one. In terms of like daily physical practices, I move every day. Now, this might not be appropriate depending, for somebody with less definition, but my root and my heart center or my ego, they need some kind of movement. So I move consistently. I let that energy move through my body. And I just like, I'm a movement professional too. I just like that stuff. I like to walk. I like to run. I like to practice martial arts and dance and things like that. So, and then I would say the third thing is I take my sleep very seriously and just physiologically. I mean, projector or not, it's the foundation for human function. Nervous system will be like, if you get shitty sleep, especially consistently, you will be in a state of nervous system hyper arousal or fight or flight. You will your blood sugar will be out of whack. You will have less energy. And over time the brain suffers like cognitive decline. And there's some studies now that link Alzheimer's to lack of deep sleep. It's a non-negotiable for me. So this is one of the things about like living your design and being true to yourself. And it's just like, yeah, I don't care how weird you think it is that I go to bed, like I'm, reading a book in bed at 9 p.m. I got to do it. I just have experimented enough where I feel awful when I don't, and I feel amazing when I do take my sleep seriously. So just these like low hanging fruits, these like easy levers to pull in terms of like self-care, but that I've learned that for me personally makes such a big difference that I just don't negotiate on them. I sleep well, I move regularly, and I don't overschedule myself.
Yeah, sleep is a big one. I'm usually asleep by 9 as well. Have you heard, do you get in bed, like follow that typical projector advice of, or non-sacral advice really, of being in bed an hour before you're even tired, like just relaxing?
I guess I do. I don't have that voice in the back of my head when I do. Like, I don't do it because of that. I just know that I usually read, and I've never been a big reader, but I just like to do it before bed. So I am usually getting in bed with the intention of reading a book. And then in not a lot of time, I just start to get that sleepy book reading feel. I'm like, okay, shut it off, lights
Yeah,
off, see you later.
yeah, that's awesome. There was one question. Okay, so we actually, both of us have very similar designs.
That's right.
Yeah, you have one more. We have the same centers defined, except that you have the G center defined, and I don't,
Hmm.
because you have the channel of initiation.
Yep, that's
I
it.
only have the 25, and you have both 25 and 51. Um, so I kind of wanted to ask you, like, I have a couple questions, but what is your experience with a defined G center? Have you really thought much about it, as far as, all the teachings on it, I guess? I mean, it's funny when we like contemplate our own design, it's like, well, this is the only experience that I have. So it's like, how do I compare it to anything else? But yeah, I guess maybe what have you kind of come up with in your experiment?
Yeah, this is the hardest one for me to like self-analyze. I've probably been able to like I could confidently self-analyze like any other center. The G center is the one where I'm just like, yeah, I don't really, because on the surface, I almost feel like an undefined G. And I've tried to, muse on that a little bit where it's like, okay, that actually is more around my undefined throat, which is like, being sort of a chameleon in the way that I can kind of express myself. But I've never felt maybe like a chameleon in terms of who I truly am and my deepest identity. One of the reasons it's so hard is because I never really took time to get to know myself, and was always, when and this is another thing about nervous system dysregulation. If you're stuck in a state of anxiety, it's really easy for your self-worth to depend on external validation, and you're just worried about, am I okay, and am I satisfying the expectations of the outside world? And you never look at who you really are. So I just feel like I was a chameleon, and I did change identities, or I didn't really know what I wanted or where I was going. But just now I'm like, okay, there's actually something underneath there that is fixed. That is who I am. And I don't even know if I could articulate that at this point, but I know it's there. Maybe, yeah, that's like the final frontier of my musings on on myself that I have yet to dig up fully.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like the G center is a very mysterious, esoteric, like getting to the heart of who you are. Yeah, I've had a hard time contemplating my open G center and really trying to see what that even means, and yeah, I've kind of played with it a little bit, like when I'm around different people, like just being aware of what I'm feeling, how I'm acting, like what I'm doing. One big thing that I've kind of been playing, and I don't know if this is about the open G center or not, but just realizing like I sort of will have these different preferences, I guess, or even, actually a lot of it has to do with food. And like I'll find myself, if I'm around different people or if I'm by myself, like what I crave for food or what I'm like desiring for food. And I'm like wondering, okay, is that an open G thing? Is that an open solar plexus thing? It could be, just taking in the energy of people around me and then just realizing, okay, do I really want to actually eat that stuff? Or is that just like this energy that I'm like, my body's like, oh, what's this? Because I'll find when I'm by myself, like I'm very consistent or and satisfied about just eating very simply, very cleanly. I've kind of over the last 3 years or so, I've kind of just come into intuitively eating mainly just fruit. And I'll find like being very clean, it actually gives me a lot of energy. I feel really good in my digestive system. And then like I won't have an issue with like wanting or craving other things unless I'm around other people, unless I'm around, living with other people and what they're doing and cooking. And then I find myself like, oh, this sounds good, or oh, and then I usually pay
Yeah.
the price if I eat it and my body's like, oh, I get inflammation. I'm like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
So
I wonder, because I experience that too sometimes with a defined G. I've thought about this a little bit before too. I wonder, if it's a combination of do you have an open solar plexus, right?
yeah,
Yeah. So with the undefined sacral and solar plexus, for me, I've thought about like, okay, it's definitely a I no longer know when enough is enough. And in terms of like enough food or enough indulgence or enough celebrating, where it's
right,
like, okay, we're all together. Like, let's have this, or let's go out for drinks or whatever it is. And when I know it's not good for me, but it's like, okay, when do we actually stop and go back to the way we know is right for eating for us or living for the self? And then also I'm thinking about the solar plexus where it's like, if it is an exciting occasion and you're just amplifying that excitement, and that's driving you to act on that excitement. So it's an interesting question and thing to ponder in general, because it's like it's so satisfying for our minds to find reasons for things that happen. And I don't know if we'll ever know. I don't know if we'll ever know what's chalked up to what, especially when you get this level of detail. But I think what is important, and that I respect about the way that you approach it, what you just said, is stopping and noticing it and just saying like, do I want this or not? Is this what I want to do? Is this, as a splenic, it's like, is this healthy for me?
yeah.
And just being able to go from there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I totally agree with you on, not getting too dogmatic about it and not having the mind be like, oh, this and this and that. I got to open, do I know when enough is enough? I think it's good to be aware of it. Obviously, everything comes back to our own inner authority, being splenic authority, knowing what's healthy, and then just knowing when's enough is enough. Because I think we can get so dogmatic that it's like, if you're around other people and you're celebrating, you want to participate, you want to be a part of your friend group or whatever, but it's just having that boundary of like, okay, when is it enough for me? And I don't have to go as far as everybody else is going to go, whether that's correct for them or not, it doesn't matter. I just have to have my boundary. So I know how far can I go to still participate, still have fun, still enjoy myself, but without, paying the price later of either being hungover the next day or dealing with inflammation in the body. And I guess it goes to how much are you willing to sacrifice or suffer for that little bit of fun, right? And I'm approaching 40 and I'm like, okay, I think I've had enough suffering, you know, for my life. I'm ready to just kind of pull it back a little bit and yeah. The other thing actually I'm really interested in is you have a 6447, the channel of abstraction, head to ajna, but you have it completely unconscious, on the unconscious side. I have the same channel, but I'm on the conscious side. So, yeah, I'm just always interested in hearing that experience because I'm like, wow, what does it mean to have an unconscious definition in the mind? Any elaboration on that?
Yeah, I ask myself that question too. I feel like in one sense, and all of this body awareness stuff that I do, all of this nervous system regulation, interoception, all of it is born from somebody has been stuck in his mind forever and anxious and dissociated and all of this stuff. So in one sense, I feel like I know this channel really well because I've lived in the mind for so long. And in another sense, I'll have things reflected back to me about that, and I'm like completely unaware of it. So I'll try to think of an example. Like, I guess, okay, so my being aware of this channel is just like I know that I think in abstractions. I think in analogies. I tend to make points using analogies. Everything in my head is like an abstract image or whatever that sometimes, depending on throat definition I'm borrowing, comes out. And sometimes it's just, nah, I'm not. In one sense, I'm just like, okay, I get this part of me. In another sense, especially with the 47 and the whole like, the realization over time is something that I just never can remember. And I feel like this might be an unconscious part of the activity there, where it's just like all of this stuff that I'm working through or trying to figure out or whatever I'm using my mind for. I just am completely unaware that an aha moment is even supposed to come, let alone like when it comes. And so it's only when I talk to other people who have that gate or the full channel, who have looked into it themselves and they're just like, remember, realization over time. I'm like, like, of course. And then I can kind of look back and be like, okay, there are things that even things I'm trying to work through with my own body or my own movement, or trying to level up my physical practice, where I'm just like, why isn't this working? All the anatomy and physiology I'm trying to apply and it's just not clicking. And then I keep working through it and it clicks. And I do think one of those gates for me is a third line. I would have to check, but let's just go ahead and assume it's a third line. So like that experimentation brings that realization over time, but I just am completely sometimes unconscious of how that's unfolding. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's the best I got.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just, it's all a matter of perspective, and I just wanted to hear how you approached it, how you thought about it. Cause I feel like for me, it's probably pretty similar, just having those abstract thoughts, trying to make sense of things, especially in the past. And maybe being conscious, it's just more of a mental focus, maybe, where it's like I'm just always in my head. I don't know. I mean, do you find your mind being very active all the time? Like thoughts and stuff? Yeah. So, yeah. Do you find that gets when you do have the ability to express it, do you find yourself expressing it without being aware of like, oh, I didn't realize I was going to say that? Or, if those realizations come out, does that ever happen?
Not that I can pinpoint. It's more about that, because that's when the throat comes into play, and my relationship with my undefined throat is just really, it's like a relationship. We're really trying to make it work, and we're going to couples therapy, and we're trying to figure this out, because it's in one sense, it's like I get a lot of recognition for my voice and for the way that I explain things and break things down. And there's like, I have that 2644 and I have that 6447 that are not, neither one of them joins to the throat. So I feel like if I'm in the presence of something that bridges that, things go really well. And those abstract thoughts and weird imageries and analogies and things like that, and realizations, they come out beautifully. And that 26 stuff of my ability to actually to influence through the throat like really comes out beautifully. And there are times where it's just so bad. It's just, I mean, it is just, and those are the times when I realize like I don't need to speak. I'm either not invited to speak or I'm done. Nothing else needs to be said, but it's just filling space. So there's no consistent experience that I've had where it comes out or it doesn't come out. It's just, I feel like it really is linked to what's defining or not defining my throat.
Yeah. I have the same experience with the throat as well, wanting to express it and, having all of these abstract things. And then when I finally get a realization, it's like my mind wants to communicate it, but then I feel like I don't know how to articulate the ideas that I'm having.
Yeah.
Like I get it. Like I can see it, and I'll have this realization. And I'm like, oh my God, like, of course. And then trying to like tell people, I'm like, yeah, but this and that. And I'm like, oh, this isn't making any sense as it's coming out of my mouth.
Right. Yeah. Yes. And I've had clients where like the same, I remember there was one client I had, He is a manifesting generator. He was doing my like fitness and movement container. He bridged that split with me, and I forget what his mental definition was, but he was just very receptive to abstractions and analogies anyway. And then, so it just flowed. Like I remember, like I came up with something on the spot to just try to get his rib cage to connect to his pelvis, like through the core musculature, so that he was more stable. We were working on his posture, and that translating to running mechanics. And I just came up with an image of like a clip, like a strap, the backpack strap almost, like clipping his rib cage to his pelvis. And he was just like, as soon as he thought of that, it was like everything cinched up together. You could see his abs. We weren't training for aesthetics, but it was just all the pressure started to align and manage in the right place. And it just became this one stable container. And he's like, man, I love that image. Like, I just feel so stable and powerful just thinking about that. And I'm like, yeah, I just made that up just now. So that's an example that of just like that, being in the presence of that definition, just allowing it to just pop up and then flow right out in a way that actually worked. And then other clients where I'm like, surely this image is going to work. And I'm like, picture like your glute is like the handle of a shovel and your foot is like the spade of the shovel, and it's all got to work as one shovel. And they're just like, what? I don't know what a shovel has to do with this at all. I'm just like, forget it.
Funny. Yeah, maybe that's the difference there, that like how you were saying, like, sometimes it just pops up and then it comes out. Is it like maybe that's the unconscious side of it, where it's like you're not really mentally thinking about this idea, but it's happening in the background. You're like, your subconscious is always working out these abstract images, putting it together. Whereas I feel like I don't have that happen as much. Like I'm always consciously examining these different images and experiences and and trying to make sense of it, like consciously. Maybe that's one big difference.
That's insightful. I believe you. I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, it might be, because I was talking with someone who also had a unconscious, but it was the center channel. I forget what that is called.
Awareness, the middle one and the head out.
Yeah. But it was completely unconscious. And she was saying, she's like, yeah, I feel like maybe sometimes it's just my body bringing up the thoughts, like it's almost like it's coming from her body, like her body's communicating with her mind more than her mind is analyzing and thinking about things. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. That could be. So I don't know if that resonates at all, but
I don't know.
You don't know. I don't know.
That's my short answer. Is I feel like there's a lot of I have a wide split too between all that body stuff and then that head definition. So it just seems like I can sort of resonate with that, but also it's just inconsistent, because when I'm not experiencing those bridging energies, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah. One more question regarding your body graph. I have the wide split as well between my mind and then my body definition, which is the ego spleen root. I sometimes feel, and I've come to this place where it's like, oh, I have my mind up here as one entity almost, like this is me thinking. And then I have my body. And so like I communicate with my body and I think about my body as something separate from me up here or whatever, even though this is me too. But it's like I've come to the place in my own practice and my own work with human design and other things of talking to my body of as if it was something separate from my mind. It's like like, oh, what do you want to do, how do you feel today, what do you want to do today, what do you want to eat today, not that I like say that out loud, but that's kind of how I approach it. Like, what does my body want to do, what does that, and it's been very helpful in allowing my body to start to communicate more, to start to get in tune with my inner authority. What is leading me, what is guiding me. Do you have any experience similar?
Yeah, slightly different in that, like, I would say I'm talking to myself always up here. Like, I'm never talking to my body. It's almost like my body is a tool or like a machine or like an animal that I'm working with my mind. So like in a movement practice or whatever, it's like there's two me's in here having a conversation just to be able to process everything. Like, it's got to be a dialogue, but it's the same person, it's the same mind, where it's like, okay, we've got to get the front hip bones to move inward and secure in this direction too, so they're aligned with the feet. But I'm not actually talking to the hip bones. I'm talking like it's like my co-pilot that's then going to control the hip bones or whatever else. So similar but different.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm starting to think like, you got that unconscious component in your mind, and it's like that's like your body's up here co-piloting your mind. Whereas
Yeah.
mine is fully my mind up here, and then I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I talk to my body? Where it's like your body almost has a seat in your mind, where it's like it's there.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. See, there's that channel of abstraction coming out with a really nice image there.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah, I've always been fascinated. As soon as I realized, I was like, oh wait, you can have a fully unconscious channel in your mind? How does that work? How does that happen? Because I have no idea.
Yeah. Same. So thanks for I really appreciate the insights that you just laid out. You give me a lot to process about that. Help me understand that a little better too.
Yeah, no problem. I'm glad we were able to have that conversation. Let's talk a little bit. I know we're coming up on the end of our time, but I really wanted to ask you about how strategy and authority, and how you tune into your authority, and how you experience your splenic authority.
Yeah. Well, I think so for tuning in, and like how I tune in is just mostly this commitment to interoceptive awareness. I think all inner authority requires it, which means that all inner authority requires a regulated nervous system to some degree. Like nervous system regulation is a worthy goal for any human, but also when it comes to inner authority, because as I mentioned earlier, like mind body connection is a resilient nervous system. There's so much talk, but my channel of judgment loves breath work and nervous system regulation, because anything that just becomes a buzz, a pop thing gets diluted and the meanings get obscured. And it's like nervous system regulation is a very specific thing. Like the autonomic nervous system is a thing that it's, the brain and the spinal cord and the nerves that come out to all the parts of the body that control automatic functions. That's what people are talking about. There are two branches. There's sympathetic fight or flight. There's parasympathetic rest and digest. Most people are dysregulated when they're stuck in fight or flight, which means we're ignoring sensations from the body or we're not good at detecting them. And then we start to confuse the signal from the body to the brain, a signal to noise ratio that's less. So it's it's like static. So this is how, for example, panic attacks have to do with perhaps a heightened interoceptive awareness, but low interoceptive accuracy. And that's why hyperventilation can feel like you're dying. You don't know the difference between death and an elevated heart rate, and there's a lot more that goes into panic attacks on the emotional side, but just on the in the moment physiological messaging from body to brain, there's a gap in interoceptive accuracy there. So if inner authority is our body talking, making our decision, which it doesn't matter what your authority is, that's what it is. Even if you're, let's say, self-projected, you're not actually trying to solve the problem by talking it out. You are responding with your body to how it sounds and how it feels when you speak it out loud. Everything is a body thing. If you can't read the body signals to the mind, you don't have access to inner authority. So nervous system regulation is attunement to inner authority, in my opinion. So all of that said, the way is to cultivate inner authority is to flex that muscle of deep, deep sensory awareness. How do I experience inner authority? It changes. The one thing that I constantly, like, that's a consistent manifestation of splenic hits is like right in my upper rib cage, a, a almost an anxious, or it's a fear. The spleen is all about fear and whatever. and then it just kind of dissipates and like flutters, like floats outward, almost like a slow motion firework that just goes and spreads throughout that upper rib cage. And I've had
And would
in
that be a
bigger moments.
no? Would that be a no for you, or?
Yeah, it would be a no. Or and then in some cases, it's come with so sometimes my splenic hits are not prompted by anything. So sometimes they are, right? Like an invitation from somebody that's not right, and it just goes no. And other times maybe like walking down the street, like don't go in this direction, go that direction. And I felt that a couple times, and it's less intense. Like it's maybe not a full anxious flutter, but it's just a little. And then other times I've gotten a few major hits, like in the middle of the night. Those are the biggest ones where I've been living in Morocco 8.5 years, and I'm leaving Morocco. And one of the things that got me to start really looking at myself in the mirror and accepting that I'm not happy here and that I need to move on was a splenic hit in the middle of the night. I'm like half asleep, kind of like, do I have to go to the bathroom, or what time is it? And then I get this flutter, and it was like a voice in my head that said, "You're wasting your life." And I was like, well, that's a fucking inner authority splenic hit if I've ever heard one before. And I can't ignore that. So like time to reevaluate things. So like that would be a major example, but it wasn't prompted by anything. It wasn't. So I guess that speaks to the idea that they do come at weird times, and you might never be ready for them. And so what better way to make sure you are ready, whatever that means, and by cultivating the skill of interoception.
Yeah, that sounds like, I feel like it's one of the most important things. And that was one of the other questions I wanted to ask, was because I've been contemplating, well, we have this charge from human design to get out of the mind, listen to your inner authority. And I was like contemplating, like, what if, which is your body, just like you were saying. And so I was like, man, what if our body is so distorted and so messed up and so out of alignment? How do we really, what if it can't even answer correctly? So how do we correct that? How do we tune into that and really know that our body's actually able to make the right decision?
Yeah. So this is where some of my work comes in and can be really, I mean, I think it's beneficial for everybody, but especially those who are like, okay, I need to get more in touch with my body. I want to know my inner authority. Like the idea is things like your breath, like your breathing pattern. These autonomic processes are a reflection of your state. So like number one is awareness. Doesn't matter what's going on. You're just noticing, like, I feel warmth here. I feel my heart beating. I can sense like the middle of my rib cage in 3D space. I'm not just like a 2D, two-dimensional sense of self. And then you start to track these sensations as a reflection of your state. So it's just data collection, just the same we do with like not self behaviors. Just like, well, I spoke when I wasn't invited to like a projector undefined throat. Like, okay, I'll noted, try not to do that again. It's kind of the same thing here where it's like, all right, my heart is beating really fast right now. So my state is elevated, or my breathing, I'm opening my mouth and panting through my mouth, and I'm just sitting down. I didn't just sprint 100 meters. So something's going on. So that's kind of the next step, is just like, what are these symptoms of an elevated state telling me? What's triggering my state? Then comes very, very progressive, very systematic, sequential, sensitive, bringing the state back toward balance, toward equilibrium. If you overdo this, then it just becomes another thing you're imposing on somebody, and it doesn't actually create safety at all, because you tell somebody, okay, you're breathing really fast, you need to slow down your breathing. But the reason they're breathing fast is because they're a perfectionist and because they're trying to meet everybody's expectations. Now you as a coach or a guide have just imposed another expectation on them that they slow their breathing. And now they're going to try really hard to slow their breathing, which is just dysregulating them even more. So it's got to be very, very close to home. and just like anything, right? You just started lifting weights. You're not going to pick up 600 pounds. You're going to try the light dumbbell or body weight first and then progress. So with it's just sensory awareness, then it's state awareness, and then it's very gentle, progressive re-regulating your state. And if you can bridge that mind-body connection bit by bit, see if you can slow your breathing a bit, or see if we can work this part of your posture, because your posture too. I mean, if you're stuck in a stiff, misaligned position, that is dysregulating in and of itself. Like that is not, you are not perceiving or oriented correctly in the world, and that's going to distort your entire experience. So it's like, can we just work this? And then can we work on the environment or the emotional triggers that might be dysregulating this? And then it's just like, inch closer from the body, inch closer from the mind, until we reach kind of a state of homeostasis or equilibrium. When we feel like there's coherence between the mind and the body, then that's when magic starts to happen.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good way of explaining it. There's a lot there that is very powerful. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah. I think that's going to be very helpful for me, but also for people in general. Yeah, really tuning that into that. And it's like you said, having that other expectation. I think so many times we could put those things on ourselves, like, oh, I need to do this to help me. And then it just becomes another thing that we have to do, right? Instead of just tuning in and being like, okay, everything is perfect exactly where it's at. Relax. Where do I want to go from here, right? It's perfect because it's not necessarily where we want to be, but it's where we are. And we can't be anywhere else now in the moment. But how do we get to where we're going gently, naturally, at the right in the right pace that's correct for our current situation. I had another question that came up during that and I totally lost it.
Save it for part 2, maybe.
Yeah. I guess last question regarding your work is, how do you integrate human design with the physiology work? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but how do you see it, I guess, working together? And do you, like, if you have a client, like a physical fitness client that you're working on, like say with the guy you're talking about, working on his hips and his, the straps, do you utilize human design in order to help people with their physiology?
Yes, and in different ways. So not so much the ways that you just described. I'm learning. There's like brilliant stuff going on. I've mentioned the archive to you before. So that's kind of their specialty. Marco and Pasha's specialty is like taking a lot of this biomechanics and sensory stuff with the body and actually using the correlation to the human design chart to take this physical approach to deconditioning. So I am learning through them more about that specific approach, but they're the experts on that side of it. Where I do use human design is more on a zoomed out level of like what are the unconscious beliefs that are driving either the habits or the postural or nervous system stuff that you're dealing with. Yeah, and what are the habits that you're likely to engage in? So just even in general with human design, like if I do a human design reading with a one-on-one, I don't tend to just teach about their chart. I will, it's almost like I'm using it as my background guide to ask the right questions or to like uncover what's kind of going on with them. So with the physiology, it's the same thing. It's like I have a client who's dealing with a lot of workplace stress and boundary issues, and he's got open ego, open root. So I'm just kind of asking questions to uncover his relationship with stress and urgency and with a need to prove himself. And sure enough, those are like crucial crux points of his issues. So it's and then I am noticing some like correlations between certain physiological phenomena, but I haven't I haven't taken the time to really codify that yet, so I'm not going to speak too deeply on it. But yeah, if you go the way that the archive goes, it's like it is the map for addressing like very tangible, concrete, physical things. And then the way that I'll use it is it's always going to be at least a guiding map for me, even if I'm not showing it directly to the person.
Very cool. I love that. Yeah, it's really, I see that there's a correlation. I mean, there's a correlation with everything because I feel like it's the real underlying mechanics, right? Of how the body works. It's just showing, like I see it, and I'm pretty sure that this is a lot of other systems, spiritual, esoteric systems will say, like, you know, the centers in human design come from the chakras, obviously. And I kind of see it as like the centers, the chakras, however you want to call them, are organs that exist on a higher plane of reality. So in esoteric traditions, you know, we have the physical plane of reality, but then right above that, which is kind of integrated with the physical, we have the vital plane or the vitality plane, which is where we see chi and prana and life force. And then above that, we have the astral plane, which is the emotional plane, then the mental plane, then the spiritual planes above that. And I think that the chakras, the energy system that we see in human design, exists on the vital plane, right above, integrated with the physical. And so I kind of see the centers as organs, just as like we have physical organs in the body,
Yeah.
there's organs in this energy body that we also have. And it's flowing, and then they're integrated as well into the
Love that.
physical. It's just in a way that we physically don't perceive them. So
Yeah.
it's really, really cool work.
Yeah. I love that. Man, you brought so many images online for me during this conversation. I appreciate
Okay.
that.
Yeah, no problem. So, okay, last two questions. What are you most passionate about right now? And it could be anything, not even related to your work, but just like what is lighting you up at the moment?
Yeah. Well, I just got off a really fun acting project. So and these are small roles, but like this actually for the first time afforded me even the smallest opportunity to be a little creative or to add depth to a character. Whereas before it was basically like glorified extras, you know, a few lines, but like to really be able to play that. And I'm just like still riding the high off of that work. And I'm like, I want to do more acting and just thinking about how I can do more of that even outside of Morocco because all my opportunities have been here. So yeah, that's kind of just what's up for me right now.
That's awesome. And then the last question is, what is the meaning of life, the universe, and everything?
I'll quote the book Conversations with God to say that the meaning of our existence is to remember who we really are.
Love it. That's amazing. All right. Well, Griffin, thanks for coming on the show. If you got anything coming up, or where can people find you if they want to follow you or work with you?
Yeah, nothing big coming up yet in my personal life. I'm transitioning, but yeah, I'm still taking clients. GriffinCoombs.com, just my name, easiest way to find me. I'm also on Instagram. Griffin.Coombs is my professional account. My personal one, you'll just find through there. I won't spell it out, but yeah, Griffin@GriffinCoombs.com. If you like to email, it's really easy. It's all just my name.
Awesome, man. Well, good luck on the transition and the move and everything. And thanks for coming on. It was such a pleasure having a conversation with you.
I really appreciate you inviting me, man. Thank you.